The technology that makes our mobile devices work is about as amazing as any human developed technology that I can think of. And it's so complex on how it all works together that it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it. But those components, sort of this, what I call like a tech puzzle for mobile, include your physical devices. So your iPhone, your Samsung devices, all kinds of various hardware devices. You've got operating systems of the iPhone, of Android, various versions of Android, and there's plenty of others. Then you have the protocols themselves: 2G, 3G, 4G, LTE, 5G, and they're creating more. You have the network itself. You've got another vendors involved that actually build the cell towers and lease out capacity to make this all work. You have the data internet in between all those cell towers, the backbone of it all. And then you have like DNS platforms for the data side of it. You have SS7 diameter signaling. It goes on and on and on. All kinds of vendors, even third-party vendors that handle SMS in the middle. And it's amazing how all this stuff works together, and the fact that I can, fly from California to Ghana or New Zealand or be off an island in Thailand, and it all works. And if it doesn't work, I get upset. And so we kind of take it for granted, but it's amazing how all this stuff works together. Now, the problem with all of this is that there are just so many pieces of the puzzle of how all this works together that it also provides all these opportunities for hackers, for governments, for nefarious organizations, organized crime, to attack us, to steal from us, track us, and do all these things. And so I'm going to talk about one of those pieces in this video. Now, before I go on to talk about the topic of the video, please subscribe to the channel, just so if you're interested in mobile security, then you can get more content in the future as I release it. And also, after you watch the video, hit the like button if you found this valuable, just so other people can get educated on the threats, mobile threats, of what I'm going to talk about in this video and all the other ones I've already done, and future ones, of course. Okay, so on to the specific topic of this video, which is about one of these pieces of the tech puzzle I was talking about, and that is SS7 technology. So I would imagine you may have never heard of SS7. So therefore, if you haven't heard of it, you don't know why it's a threat. So I'm going to talk about what does SS7 do? Why do you need to know what it does? And then what are the vulnerabilities, and how do people use those vulnerabilities to do nefarious things to you? So a little bit about the history of SS7. SS7 is a messaging, it's a packet technology invented in 1975. It became an international standard in the late 80s. I think it was 1988, where all the operators around the world were using SS7 for landlines and mobile phones as what I like to call sort of the traffic cop, an enabler of making phone calls happen, text messages. It is the enabler, and it is what binds all these technology pieces together and helps make it work. So what does SS7 do? Well, when you pick up your landline, for example, and if I want to call somebody in Australia, and let's say they are a mobile user, so I dial that Australian number, SS7 says, okay, well, this is the Australian country code. Then the SS7 network says, okay, well, this is a mobile phone. And so it's trying to find what tower, what cell tower that person is connected to. Now, let's say that person is roaming in Norway. So now the SS7 network is now communicating and says, okay, well, this person is roaming on an operator in Norway. They are using this specific cell tower in Oslo. And now it can make that call connected. And it's doing that with 3 carriers involved. So you've got AT&T, you've got Telstra in Australia, and now you've got this roaming mobile operator in Norway. Let's say it's Telenor. And SS7 not only connects that call up, but it is recording all the data to be able to bill for that call. When that person on either end hangs up that phone, whether it's the landline on one end or the mobile phone on the other, SS7 is what says, shut this call down. And now it records that data. So now the operators can bill each other. They can now bill you. And this is just part of that whole amazing puzzle as to how this all works. So to give you a list of like what SS7 does, it does call setup, it does call tear down, call forwarding, call waiting, conference calling. If you're old enough to remember back prior to like 1982, 81, and before that, when you bought an 800 number, if you have that with AT&T or you have that with WorldCom, you weren't able to switch your 800 number back and forth. So it was monopolistic. There's price gouging. Ronald Reagan came along, had the telecom deregulation, and part of that was to make it a law that you could switch your 800 number back and forth. And so now, instead of AT&T or WorldCom gouging their customers, the customer could say, hey, I'm paying too much, I'm going to switch over to AT&T or vice versa. And so, of course, now there's like tons and tons of 800 number providers and creating all kinds of competition. And SS7 is the technology that made all of that portability capability happen. And it's also what made long distance calls cheaper, and your ability to move from AT&T to T-Mobile to AT&T. And so mobile's gotten better, it's gotten faster, more technology, more features, functionality, and it's gotten cheaper and more global. So SS7 was a big part of that. Now, I've seen some people say that SS7 really isn't a threat anymore for mobile, that maybe for landlines, but for mobile that it's not, just because SS7 is used for signaling, call setup, all these things I've listed for 2G and 3G. And there's a different protocol, Diameter, which is used for your LTE and your 5G. The problem is that if you leave the US and you're using your mobile phone, the majority of the world and the majority of this signaling type feature setup and management is done by SS7. So yes, if you're on AT&T and you're using a Diameter protocol and you never leave the AT&T coverage, then you're not going to be using SS7. But if I'm an AT&T customer and I roam and I go off the AT&T network, all roaming, whether I'm in the US and roaming or I'm in another country and roaming, that's all SS7. So SS7 is not only a threat for people who travel international and they're on slower networks, third world countries that have not completely switched over, but it is also a threat because if you roam outside of your own carrier's coverage, you're going to be on SS7 because that's what's handling that billing, that data collection, those call setups between operators. So it's going to be years and years before SS7 is eliminated. So it is still a threat. So why is SS7 vulnerable to hackers, and why do you care? What can they do with it? Well, the problems with SS7 is that it was created in 75, which means it was created before encryption and authentication methods. So SS7 is an unprotected protocol, and therefore it can be intercepted, it can be forged, it can be manipulated. And this is a big problem for all of us. And nobody knows about it except for a handful of people who really care about mobile security, or people who have gotten hit. And even if you've gotten hit, and hacked, you may not understand why. Like, how can you discover an SS7 type attack? Even the carrier probably can't even investigate that kind of attack. They don't have the time, they don't have the resources, they probably don't even care. And as long as you pay your bill, they just don't care. And so it is an issue. What this means is that you can use a VPN to encrypt your data transmission. You can call and message and do things, on Signal. That is encrypted. But the call setup, who you call, who you're texting, who's calling you, who's texting you, all the things like that are not protected, except for really the only defense that SS7 has is that the SS7 network is supposed to be a closed system. It's only supposed to be accessible by mobile operators. But the problem is that the mobile industry has grown so fast and so furious that all these organizations like mobile operators, mobile resellers, mobile virtual network operators, there's SS7 aggregators that provide SS7 to all these small operators that can't afford to build and manage their own SS7 network. There's governments that have access, and there's people inside those governments that have access to SS7 to do whatever it is they're doing to monitor and things like that, monitor adversaries, track adversaries. And all of these have created holes. So it is not a closed system. It's just a matter of knowing the right person, bribing the right person, getting inside of an organization that has the kind of access you would need to access this SS7 network. And if I want to attack somebody, if I want to track, say, somebody using AT&T's network that's using AT&T, I don't need to be on AT&T's SS7 network to do this. I could actually go to a third world country, be part of a government in a third world. And I'm not trying to pick on third world countries because I'm sure it happens in the US. But if I can find an organization, a nefarious person inside one of these organizations who's willing to sell that kind of access, it's going to happen. So the problem is that with these SS7 type attacks is there's too much money involved. You can steal, you can track, you can blackmail. There's so many things you can do that to think with human nature that organized crime or governments are not going to use this would probably be a bad assumption to make. To give you an example of one way, like one country is trying to protect themselves, is Ukraine actually blocked the mobile subscribers in Belarus and Russia from having any SS7 access to the Ukrainian mobile carriers. So there's 3 mobile carriers there. And if you're a subscriber in Russia or out of Belarus, you cannot use the SS7 network in Ukraine. So it's even used in times of war. So when somebody's using SS7 to do this kind of snooping, it is referred to as an SS7 probe or an International Mobile Subscriber Identity Catcher, and that stands for IMSI. And the IMSI is the IMSI number that's on your cell SIM card. So if you have a physical SIM, you can pull that out and look at it closely, and there's going to be a little SIM number on there. Well, that's the identifier number of your SIM card that's going into your phone. Or if you have an eSIM and you look at the settings on your phone, it's going to have that IMSI number identifier in your settings. And that's one of the pieces of information that people need in order to do this kind of snooping. And there's various ways to get that. But once they have that, they can now do all these nefarious things. For example, they can track your location. So like I said before, I could go to an island off of Thailand, Indonesia, and if I've got it connected to a cell tower, they can find me. If I have GPS turned on, they can find me within like 3 meters. If I have GPS turned off, they can see that I'm on an island in Thailand, and they can track me to within a couple 100 meters through triangulation of the cellular towers. So it's pretty accurate. You can see, somebody who's going to travel around the world, but if their GPS is on, I can literally see that they're at a traffic stop with the accuracy of when you use Google Maps or Apple Maps to help you get to, doctor's office or some address that you're trying to find. So that's the accuracy that they can get out of these type of attacks. Now, one example of how one of the most famous spyware providers did get access and was able to, intercept things and, load malware on people's phones and target them is the NGO organization, which was behind the Pegasus spyware, is rumored to have paid, bags of cash to insiders to give them access to SS7 networks that they needed in order to target journalists, anyone that was willing to pay them to, target a government employee, a journalist, a specific person. SS7 is one of the technologies that NGO use in order to target an individual and get the spyware put on their device, which would then look for vulnerabilities once it's on the device, root that device without the victim knowing it, grab access to their microphone, to their camera, copy emails, send them out, whatever, the spyware was doing. It's, there's articles. I could probably do a video just on the NGO Pegasus and the damage it could cause and what it did. But it's an example how organization paid money to have access to SS7 to do what they needed to do. So why should you care about this SS7 risk? Well, one is that you, your family, your business, so if you're part of a law firm or a large organization, could be monitored, or even like mass surveillance, could be monitored using SS7. So once they get a hold of your IMSI number and they've got that in their database, they can just literally track like every attorney out of a law office and know where they're going, who they're visiting with, what companies are they visiting with. Can they use this to determine, like, if there's a law firm that specializes in mergers and acquisitions, and they continue to send multiple attorneys to go meet at this specific business location. If you've got that kind of data, then you can make assumptions around like what's happening, and now you can hyper focus on what's going on there and hack the the business, for example, and do the same thing. And so if you're a fraud investigator, if you're part of law enforcement, intelligence, and even we're at war, for example. So like the Ukraine example, it's kind of creepy on what you can do with this stuff. Second, like if you have like somebody's IMSI number as an example, then you can intercept these SS7 messages, which means that you can intercept phone calls. You can do call forwarding. You can use SS7 to hack into what is believed to be secure messaging apps. So if you want to learn about an example of how people use SS7 to get into what you believe to be an encrypted or secure communication, Google WhatsApp SS7 attack and look at what some hackers have been able to do with SS7. And I'm not picking on WhatsApp because they can do this to many of the other messaging platforms. And that could be a video itself. And maybe I'll do that where I just talk about the messaging apps and how hackers are, using technology to get into those. But I have to limit this. This video could literally be like 4 hours long to describe all the various technologies and hacker tools and all that. And I also don't want to train a bunch of hackers on, how to hack into WhatsApp and other apps too. So just go and do your own research. Facebook SS7 WhatsApp attack. Facebook SS7 attack, WhatsApp SS7 attack, and see what you come up with. Third, these SS7 attacks allow for mass surveillance. So to give you an example of how it could be used, I know that there's a recent article that came out about how one of the states in the US worked with Google for some kind of COVID tracking. And I'm not saying like whether this is morally right or wrong, or if it's legally right or wrong. Morally, I think it's wrong, but legally, I'm not sure. But they worked together in order to do mass surveillance against mobile users. So they could track people that, again, they could track if they have GPS turned on. They know exactly where they are. They know if two people are standing, 6 feet apart, or whether they're standing 6 yards apart. If you've left the state, they can track you. And so if you're part of that, mass surveillance, wherever you went in the world, they could actually track you. And that's kind of creepy. So go ahead and Google state worked with Google for COVID tracking and read the articles yourself. Again, that could be a whole separate video on just that topic. And then again, tracking capabilities can be used in war. So there's, you might have seen articles where a missile hit a specific building and where they used actually cell phone mobile tracking to see that there were, military or some kind of operation inside of a building. I know that it has probably been a decade now, but there was some Navy seaman who posted a picture of like the moon. He took a picture there out in the ocean, and he took a picture of the moon, posted the picture saying, "Oh, this is amazing, how beautiful it is." And then he ended up getting in trouble because he just then identified the potential location. So if you're a government and your military sees some kind of mobile ping out of a certain location, well, now they know, well, there must be something out there. So we better monitor that part, and we better be aware. And you're giving up, the location of one of your military ships. So, these type of technologies are used by governments, by militaries, and organized crime, and the list goes on. So after all this downer talk about SS7 threats, what can you do to protect yourself? So the only foolproof way to protect yourself from SS7 attacks and people to be able to track you and intercept phone calls and text messages and things like that is just don't use it. Now, if you're watching this video, then you're watching on a computer, you're watching on a mobile device, you're obviously using the internet and an application, so it's not going to work for you. And to live off grid, I don't know how you do it, but you would be basically impossible to make a living. And so obviously that's not going to happen. So beyond that, what can you do? Well, the first thing to recommend is do use the secure messaging apps whenever possible. So an example is if you're an attorney, or if you want to keep a call like encrypted and secure, you could call somebody, talk to them and say, hey, do you use Signal? I want to talk to you on Signal. I want to message you there and call you, and try and move that communication to an encrypted communication. So I'm not endorsing Signal or any of the apps. I'm not saying any of them are good or any of them are bad. Do your own research. I mentioned Signal just because I'm not aware of any kind of SS7 exploits that have happened or become public. They may exist, but I haven't found any. And but if you're going to use WhatsApp, then research it. If you're going to use Messenger, then research it and make the decision on your own. Now, keep in mind that if you are using a cell phone and you've got voice, text, and data on that phone, and that even if you're using like Signal for all of your calls and messaging, and that's all encrypted, that they can still track your phone. So if they get the IMSI number and your mobile number, then they can still do things to you. They can still track you. They can still use like cell tower spoofers and DNS hijacking and all, SS7 type attacks. It just means that at least your messaging and your calls will be encrypted. Now, I've talked to organizations who say, like, well, we're totally secure because all of our employees use a cell phone. They're only allowed to use Signal to communicate, and they're not allowed to call or text from that mobile number on their phone. But all somebody has to do is run an SS7, is run an IMSI Catcher or a Stingray or a Dirtbox cell tower spoofer, collect your IMSI number. If they get your IMSI number, they're going to find your mobile number. Now they can do DNS hijacking and track your location and all these other various attacks. So yeah, great. Maybe you're decreasing the odds of this kind of stuff being found out. But you're buying mobile service from the operator, so people at the mobile operator have that information, and so it's kind of hard to avoid. So just be aware of that. Now, for the mobile service part of the equation, standard mobile service is just not cutting it. It's too wide open, and there's too many ways to attack it. And so one of the services that Afani offers is called the Safe Plan, and this is for U.S. residents and soon to expand into Mexico. And what the Safe Plan offers is your choice of a top mobile operator like AT&T, and you get your unlimited voice, data, and text from AT&T in US, Canada, and Mexico with 40 gigabits of priority traffic. And Afani's trying to expand that. But the primary use of why you'd get the Safe Plan is because it blocks SIM swapping. So what Afani does when you move your AT&T over to Afani, for example, what it does is will remove all the employees from having access, the store employees, call centers, third-party call centers, third-party stores from having any access to your account. Also, your personal information is removed from that account. So when somebody's an Afani customer, the providing network doesn't even have your personal information, and Afani becomes your 7x24 customer support, and provides 11 layers of verification, which includes technical and manual steps to make sure that your mobile account can never get stolen away. Because one of the easiest hacks to do if you want to get into somebody's email, bank account, crypto, brokerage, whatever, business, hosting, business emails, is to steal their mobile account away. There's no technology needed. You just need to be able to impersonate the victim. And there's 15-year-old hackers out there that have stolen $20+ million of crypto, for example, 15 years old. So all they had to do is impersonate an adult's voice with some simple social engineering, or bribe some employee at a phone store or working in a call center to make it happen. And if you can steal, whether it's $3,000 or whether it's $30 million of Bitcoin, it's worth your time. And so that will at least close the loophole of SIM swapping. Now, Afani's also has just released a uber secure data service called Black Seal. Black Seal is a data-only service that is provided by a different SIM card with an applet on the SIM card and a cloud proxy solution that protects you from your SIM card through the cell tower onto this cloud proxy service. It does things like detect and protect against IMSI Catchers, Stingrays, cell tower spoofers. It protects against SS7 hijacking, DNS hijacking, DDoS attacks, because it's moving the defensive layer from the radio connection in your cell phone out to the cloud proxy solution. And it can even do things like when you make a connection, that IMSI number can be carried along with the packet information. And between your SIM card and that cloud proxy solution, that piece of information is going to be protected. And then a different IMSI number can be shown to the public. So if I were to have a communication with somebody in Australia and a hacker's on the Australian end, they're going to see an IMSI number, which will have no bearing on them being able to track me, attack me, and things like that. So moving that defense out to the network. So it is a data-only service. So if you want the full voice, SMS, and data security, at least the most secure solution, then you want to have the safe plan plus Black Seal. And therefore, you'll have the SIM security on your voice and your SMS to make sure that can't get stolen away, and have them use SMS to reset your passwords and things like that. Then you'll also have the Black Seal data solution, which has the detection of SS7 attacks for that data part of it. But more importantly, for the cell tower spoofers, if somebody flips on a cell tower spoofer outside your home, your office, if you're at a conference, well, now you know, you better not make phone calls or send text messages until maybe you get to a different location. And so that will help you get secure. Now, Afani's, we are working on expanding the Black Seal protection to include the voice and the SM part of the communications. So that'll just be Black Seal, full experience, voice, text, and data. It's a very difficult thing to do. We're working on it. We hope to launch that in the next 6 months. But until then, the most secure solution for mobile is the Safe plus Black Seal. Or if you're one of those uber secure people, you can, and you actually do everything on data, then you can just use the Black Seal solution on your phone. Now, on the hardware side of it, if I were to ask people a year ago when they called me up, because I get all the difficult calls where people want to know, like, does your Black Seal, protect against this, and will, Safe protect against this type of SIM swapping? And so I probably had a dozen or more people, half cry or cry on the phone with me because they're getting so hacked. Now, when I talked to them a year ago and said, hey, are you willing to use one of these secure phones, but you have to give up, Instagram and TikTok, which is probably the worst app out there, and these fun apps, they say, no, I like my iPhone. Well, now some of those people are calling back, and they're getting attacked so bad that they're having a second phone, which is for all their fun stuff. Nothing, no business accounts, no bank, nothing attached to it. And then they are interested in asking for recommendations on a secure cell phone where it wouldn't use these kind of fun apps. So because of that need, we've actually partnered with a company called Copperhead OS, and Copperhead OS is a secure OS provider, and it's built on the Pixel series of phones, the 4, 5, and 6, and they'll be adding the 7 soon. But what it is a de-Googled Android operating system where they've removed all the hooks from Google to be able to do the data collection and selling your information to affiliate marketing and tracking your location, doing all those things to sell it to people who want to advertise to you. And it also has a bunch of other security features about the phone and the operating system. I'm going to do a video specific to that Pixel phone with the Copperhead OS. They have 2 different versions of the phone and OS. One's called Work, and the Work allows you a full voice, text, and data experience, and it restricts you to a number of apps. And it restricts you to the Aurora App Store. The Aurora App Store scans all their apps. You have to get accepted and approved. It's very limited on the apps that you're allowed to download. Chrome becomes, Chromium, because all the Google hooks are moved out of it. There's an email app there. You can get Telegram, Signal, Brave browser, and it's going to eliminate you from being able to accidentally, volunteer your information away or leak information by limiting the ability of apps and how you use your phone. So you mix the Copperhead OS with the Pixel phone. It's de-Googled, it's limited to that secure apps only, and then put safe and be it Black Seal or just safe or just Black Seal on it, and your security now just increased. And also, they also sell a version called Lock, and Lock actually has removed the ability to even make phone calls or SMS at all. So it just completely takes that out. It is a data-only phone, and it is paired with the Afani Black Seal data-only, uber secure data-only solution. And therefore, when you're using Telegram and Signal and email, then you're going to be using secure apps on a secure phone on a de-Googled Android operating system over a protected data stream. So you can't really get any more secure than that. So that is a very viable option. The Lock version has become their most popular phone operating system option that they sell. Now, in addition to that, Afani, not only are we trying to expand Black Seal coverage to include data, SMS, and voice, but we're also developing our own VoIP app. And so we hope by the March timeframe that we're going to be releasing the most secure VoIP app in the world to go along with the most secure mobile service in the world to protect you even further. And this would allow somebody to have a world number, for example, where wherever you go in the world, somebody can call this VoIP number, or you can call them. And as long as you have a data connection, then you're going to be able to send and receive or send and receive SMS. And it's all going to be encrypted over the Black Seal. So the VoIP itself will be encrypted. That encrypted voice call will be over the protected data stream of Black Seal. And it would remove the SMS and the voice interception and fraud and cloning and all of the things that can happen that I've outlined in this video and other videos. It just takes it right off the table. So that work phone with Black Seal with the VoIP is going to allow you the full data experience, the calling, the SMS. So Afani is not only trying to solve the problems of yesterday and today, like SIM swapping, that continues to be a growing threat, but also protection against DNS hijacking, when I've done another video on that, IP loggers, malicious data injections, SS7 diameter type attacks. So, I haven't really talked about how diameter, is the future signaling technology behind the LTE and 5G and beyond. But diameter itself also has gaps and holes and exploits, and they've already been identified. And yes, they'll continue to work on trying to close those, and it will be better than SS7. But when hackers find these exploits, they exploit the exploits. So that's really the summary, the end of the video. Please, again, subscribe to the channel so that you can get more updates on mobile security topics. Check out all the videos that I've already produced, and I'm going to be putting these videos out. Hopefully, I'm going to try and get to the point where I'm doing like 1 or 2 a week as I find the time. I know that our customers appreciate these, and when people call in, they find these videos valuable to get information about the different threats, maybe how they got hacked, and also about why they can become or should become an Afani customer as well. And then like the video, just to help promote it and get other people educated on all the different threats that they have to worry about. Again, the mobile communications is totally wide open. It's very, very creepy what people can do, and not very many people know about it. So thank you for listening, and hope to see you soon.